Welcome to Hook Potential, where we go over the opening sections of a game and figure out if the opener is good enough to hook you in and keep you playing. During October's Steam Next Fest, one of the demos I was most excited to play was for the latest entry in the long-running Nihon Falcom series, Ys. This being Ys 10 Nordics. I recorded my playthrough of most of the demo, pointing out in my commentary that this is how demos should be. Long, meaty, and capable of showing you a lot of what the gameplay and the storytelling is going to be like and about. It wasn't my first time with Ys X, I need to say that. I had already purchased it in Japanese when it first released, which was about last year. But with my limited knowledge of Japanese, even though I understood the gist of things, there were a lot of details that I was missing, a lot of context. So I decided not to continue and wait for the localization, while at the same time continuing my Japanese learning on the off chance that I would skill up enough to play the game in its original language. That didn't happen. The localization is here first. I'm very familiar with the Ys series. It was the subject of my second Everything You Need to Know video, a primer on the series. And I have to say that Ys is near and dear to my heart. I have enjoyed Adol Christin's adventures for years now, and I'm excited every time I learn there's going to be a new one, especially as the entries are not in chronological order, instead taking place at various points in Adol's life and journeys. Ys 10 in particular is placed after the original two games and before the fourth, Memories of Solcita. But for Hook Potential, I need to get myself out of the equation and see this from the point of view of someone completely new to the series. Someone who's not already somewhat invested in the world or trusts Nihon Falcom's design enough to just keep playing, confident that it will pick up if the opening is not especially compelling. So let's get to it. As always, this analysis is based on the opening hour of the game, similar to what I would give a long format TV series, one episode, 60 minutes, counting from the moment I start a new playthrough of Ys 10 Nordics. The final grade will be determined based on if the opener can sufficiently inform a new player of two important items. First, the core gameplay loop. In this case, it's questing, combat, and exploration. It doesn't need to convey all the nuances, but just enough that you know what the experience is going to be like for the most part. Second, storyline and world building. You should, by the end of the first hour, know of at least one conflict, one antagonist, or a situation that the characters need to overcome. It can be as simple as there are monsters to hunt, and then showing you that monster or monsters and why they're a menace. Ys 10 opens with Adol on a ship, which to people familiar with the series will not be a new thing. Many of the games open with Adol on some form of sea vessel and then, well, shipwrecking. Here Adol gets boarded by Norman, aka Viking raiders, which, you know, it's Adol on a boat. Something had to happen. Turns out the Norman are boarding because the captain is skipping on some toll payments and, well, he pays the price. The ultimate price. He gets axed from the show, literally. And despite the Norman fighting you, they're doing so because they think you're a bodyguard, not one of the passengers. As soon as that's cleared up, hostilities cease immediately. This opening section, which ends at about the 15-minute mark, introduces Adol and two of his companions, Dogi and Dr. Flair, and introduces the Normans and their organization, the Balta Sea Force, which rules over the waters of Obelia Bay, and two of its officers, though they're not named yet. In addition to these story elements, we have the tutorials for the basic combat controls, attacking, blocking, and dodging. From there, we have the intro sequence for Ys 10 and the exploration of the town, as, not knowing how long they'll have to stay around here, Adol and his friends try to find something to do, even picking up some rumors of potential avenues of adventure, and even for newcomers, it's immediately apparent that Adol is all about that, about the discovery, the journey, and just finding weird stuff along the way. The first section introduces some of the townspeople, and most importantly informs the player of the status quo of the Obelia Gulf, and the tense relationships between the island of Karnak and its Norman overseers. But given there is a Norman merchant who is very much welcome, we can infer that the animosity is more towards the Sea Force, rather than Normans as a whole. But most importantly, we get the first mystery, the seashell, a mystical item carried by the tides onto the beach, and from which a voice emerges, that of a young girl clearly in distress, who asks for Adol's help while also bestowing on him the power of mana, the main power MacGuffin for East 10. Not only that, but we also get our first fight against the Grieger, the big bad monsters of Nordics, which only those with mana can actually finish off. Otherwise, they revive and fully heal from their injuries. Along with it is the first skill, so you learn another building block of the gameplay loop, using skills and mastering them the more you use them. With the Grieger defeated and Lila or Lila, the young girl from the seashell, not being able to provide any hints on where she is or what's going on with her, Adol returns to the inn to confer with his companions, and the day ends. This is about 40 minutes into East 10, 20 minutes to go. On the next morning, Adol receives a missive telling him to go to the beach, and there we meet one of the Norman raiders, who we briefly fought on the ship, one of those unnamed leaders. This is Karja, the female lead for the game and Adol's partner. There's a nice fight with her where you put everything you've learned thus far to the test. It's not a hard fight and not that very long, stopping at around half her health. But it is fun, and it teaches you another part of the combat, red attacks, which at this point are unblockable and must be avoided. And then after the fight, a magical effect links Adol and Karja together, so they have to stick close and unlocks duo mode, where both characters attack at the same time, and which is the main gimmick of East 10, and you're given some Grieger cannon fodder to test your skills out. The final chunk of the game for this hour has the two characters coming to terms with the situation, meeting Gunnar, that other Norman leader, and getting Karja into a different attire altogether, as her Norman Raider one makes her stand out and causes the locals to become wary in her presence. Now that's the full hour. We have the basics of combat, the basics of duo mode, the introduction of the main characters, the status quo of the region, aka the thing that will be disrupted in the story, and two conflicts, the mysterious girl from the seashell and the immortal monsters, the Grieger. It's easy to figure out what the gameplay loop is going to be like. Explore the region, fight Grieger, shenanigans ensue, including at least one shipwreck so Adol can meet his quota. It helps that literally 5 minutes after the Let's Suit Up cutscene, you get the first open field with a quest to save and of course meet other townsfolk while taking Grieger out and unlocking more aspects of the duel system, including some combination skills and how to block those red attacks. So what is East 10 Nordics' final grade? Before I did my analysis, I didn't think I'd be able to give it a high grade, but with everything I've gone over, I have to award East 10 Nordics a golden hook. It ticks all the boxes. Sure, it will take at least another half an hour before some proper main villains show up, or more gameplay elements are unlocked, such as sailing a ship across the Obelia Gulf, disembarking on different islands, conquering dungeons, talent trees, and other upgrades. But RPGs, even action RPGs, are more of a slow burn, and key story elements take hours upon hours to become apparent, and gameplay enhancements or additions are often gated behind story progression. And with that, there's only one thing left for you to do. Go play East 10 and get hooked.